Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Deep Culture Podcast. This is Fali here, and I hope you guys are enjoying the content that we're putting out there for you. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. What are you guys doing? Join the family, and also please join our Facebook group as well that we have now on our Facebook. At inspireyoutoo. All right. Today's episode is gonna be a very interesting one. I feel like it's a special one because it's my birthday. But also because I think on my birthday, I've also found my digital media twin. When I say digital media, I mean that she's in the digital media industry, but I see her doing a very similar kind of job or role that I do here in the social media industry, which is trying to find stories about inspiring people and inspiring experiences and journeys. And how I came to know about her was that it's been 12 years since we last connected. And from there, all of a sudden, I saw a profile pop up on LinkedIn sharing a very inspiring video. And it turns out that it was my long-time friend of 12 years ago who was actually producing that video. And after watching the video, I was inspired. So I decided, let me reconnect with her and see whether she'd be interested to come on. So she's here today. So without further ado, please help me welcome Lilian to the Deep Culture Podcast. Lilian, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. How's the introduction? Was it okay?
Yeah. Okay, today is Patli's birthday, so everybody have to wish him happy birthday. He's turning older.
Older.
Yeah.
I feel
and
it.
wiser, hopefully.
Hopefully. Have I grown and changed since the last time?
Well, okay, I
12
haven't
years
seen
ago.
you in 12 years, right?
12 years, yeah.
And honestly, I feel like it's still the same.
Okay.
Except your hair grew longer.
Alright.
And of course, yeah, but like I guess like the fatter. I don't think so.
No?
I don't remember, so
Okay.
yeah, but 12 years is really, really long. Unless like you balloon up, I could totally tell the difference. But now probably
Not so.
still okay. Healthy.
Healthy.
So it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, you look good too. Of course, the hair. I think the main difference between the two of us is our hair. I mean,
Yeah.
from the last time we met, right?
Yeah.
Yours is now, what color is this?
Not black. Older, so not black.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair
And Fali has a man bun. Is it considered a man bun?
Yeah, I guess so. I think it's a mini man bun.
Oh, it's a ponytail.
That one, yeah.
yeah. Man ponytail.
Man ponytail.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah. How are you, Lilian?
Wow, that's a very loaded question. No, I'm good. Happy to be here. I think, yeah, at first, like when I saw your message on LinkedIn, yeah, I mean, it's always good to hear from somebody I haven't heard for in a long time. Yeah, and at the same time, like I was also interested in what you actually do. Yeah, and I guess like after that we reconnected, so like it's really cool to find out like a little bit more about like what you do.
Yeah. And for me, when I reached out to you, I wasn't too sure whether you'd remember me. That was what, because it's 12 years.
Really? Why would I not remember you?
I don't know. But for whatever reason, maybe you traveled the world. I don't know. But the second thing was I was wondering whether somebody from the digital media would be keen to do a podcast and share their experiences from it. So thank you very much for accepting it. That's the first thing I want to say, of course.
Firstly, I would definitely remember you because you're a nice friend back in school,
Aw.
right? Yeah.
I think so. I hope
And I think I remember you to be a very kind person. So obviously, I would reply you.
Thank
yeah.
you.
And of course, like I think I'll be happy to share. And also because like I've listened to your podcast and I like the work that you do.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's a plus. Yeah, and yeah.
Thank you.
It's my first time being on interviewed because I'm usually the one interviewing people.
Right.
Yeah, so this time I think it felt a little bit of like a disconnect initially. But then I feel like it's something that I would like to do as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm on my first interview, besides job interviews, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more. What do you do, Lilian?
Okay, so I'm a producer. So I used to do broadcast television, like documentaries, factual content for broadcast television.
Yeah.
And more recently, I moved into digital media space, in which the videos that I produce are more for the internet online.
Okay.
So people could have access to it on like our website, our YouTube, Facebook, social media, and the likes of it, because a lot of things are actually moving towards the internet now. So I guess that's a good space to be at.
Okay.
Yeah, but honestly, if you ask me 12 years ago, would I be doing this? I couldn't be sure myself. Right? Yeah.
So as a producer, right? You're doing, that's your role now. So how did you get into it? Because when you mentioned that 12 years ago, if I asked you this, would you have said that you would be doing this? You would say no. Neither did I. Like, I had no idea. I always thought, like I mentioned, you would be somewhere in the IT industry or business kind of world. I didn't see you as somebody who's in the artsy side doing creatives. So what brought you to this point?
Oh, interestingly, honestly, if I was in the IT industry right now, I'll be flourishing, because IT industry is really doing well now.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess back when we know each other in high school, I didn't have like a purpose, right? Or like, I feel like I was aimless back then, at least, right? Like I wasn't sure like what I want to do, or like who I want to be. And I guess I share this story a lot. Being like, after like in the midst of O levels, and then you have to choose your path after that. So I was still pretty aimless then. Then like there's this brochure that came to the school, like those like open house and like pamphlets and all that. And then they asked 3 simple questions, like, do you like to watch television? Do you like to read? And do you like to do something else? I cannot remember the exact question. But basically my answer to that was yes, yes, and yes. So it was a very simple brochure, but that got me answering yes. So I thought, okay, why not I try for this course, right? So it turns out to be creative writing for television and new media in Singapore Poly.
Creative writing,
for television and new media. So, and surprisingly, it's the pioneer course. So like I was in the pioneer batch. It was like a whole brand new course. And then I guess they only got like maybe 40 to 80 people, or like very little people in the cohort for the pioneer batch. And
how many people was that roughly?
I would say 80 if I'm right.
Because
there's only like 2 classes, and then like
2 classes. 40 each.
So so I was very, very lucky. I felt very, very lucky to be there. And I guess it was there that I got into like visual communications, photography at first. I've always liked writing and reading as a kid. And that's when also I learned the art of like filmmaking and journalism. And then I guess that's when I found out what I want to do. That kind of helped me discover the path of storytelling. And I grew into that. So that was how like I got into like where I am today also. So that green brochure,
You mentioned creative writing is the name of the course, but you also mentioned photography and all this. So how is creative writing linked to all that actually?
So like creative writing for television and new media. So like so in the course we learn script writing, we learn like journalism, we learn photography, we learn like video production. So we kind of learn the different tools to tell a story. So at that point of time, all these are like the tools that were available. Because back then, I guess it was the transition towards digital media. So social media and all that was relatively new. I think Instagram just came out like during that time. So we are that old.
I know, right?
So for me, like so I was also very keen on print media, like traditional like newspapers and all that. So so I've learned like how to write stories first, essentially. And then slowly moving on to that. But the course no longer exists now, because they're going to combine like all the communication courses in Singapore Poly as of this year or next year. As a foundational course. So sorry.
It sounds like mass comm. Is it the same as mass comm?
Mass comm is a bit more different, because mass comm is broader. So like it touched on like broadcast, and then it touched on advertising as well. The business of like communication, they do that as well. And I think what it is that people choose like which path they want to dabble into. But then the course that I was in was more like literally on the creative side, and then you just choose like which part of like the creative side you want to dabble into, whether it's writing, whether it's video production, or like whether it's even, I think there's game design or like website design. Something like that. So basically we were the guinea pigs, and then we learn the different like foundational tools of like the different ways of storytelling.
That's so cool. So which ones are your favorite?
Back in school.
Yeah.
Back in
Oh,
school.
is it different from now?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
You tell me.
Okay.
Back in school, I remember I was very, very keen on like video production because like I want to be a director, and at the same time, like I was also very, very keen on journalism because I've always liked telling, like reporting news or like telling facts, right? Like
Yeah.
reporting facts, factual storytelling. So it was like a conflict because I really like both. Like I want to be a reporter at the same time. Like I really want to go to do films.
Yeah.
So then I guess like it was that conflict. So like at the end of like the final year, I got to go on an internship. So I chose my own internship like for that, and I chose an international documentary production house in Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah, so documentary, I guess it helped me marry both that I really like, journalism and video production. Yeah, so that's where I started actually, documentaries and factual storytelling.
So even now you're doing that, right?
Yeah, even now I'm doing that.
So I guess then it hasn't changed then.
Well, for like in the past, I would say like I want to be a journalist. Like I wanted to be a print journalist. Yeah, so to me, or like photojournalist.
Right.
Yeah, so that was like a path that I considered. Yeah, going into. Yeah, but I guess now I'm in a place where I'm happy to be at also because
Okay.
I feel like I could do right now like with right now print is not doing very well, so a lot is onto digital space. So I guess if I had gone down that path, I might not be where I am today.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm not surprised when you say the journalism part though, because I mean we got close back in secondary school from our history classes, right?
Yeah.
So we've always like like stories from the past, and then after that looking at facts, historical facts. So that part I'm not surprised. The other aspect, which was what's the other aspect?
Video production.
Video productions. That's where I didn't kind of expect it. So what is it about videos that you enjoy?
Honestly, I started off like in photography. So I remember like so when I was in the first year in poly, it was the first year that I'm exposed to all the tools like a camera and like like how to record and all that. And I guess for me it was quite more like I take pictures because everybody else was taking pictures like
Okay.
like for schoolwork. But my lecturer thought that I have a good eye for photography. So then that got me into just taking more photos covering events and all that, then just capturing moments. So that was like one thing that I started into, and then I realized that apparently if I have a good eye for that, then I want to use it for good.
Okay.
Then I started doing portraits. But at the same time, like photography, a picture can tell like a very powerful story, but then video can tell even more powerful story. Sorry, photographers. But yeah, so that's how I got started into. It's not so much of like a very keen interest in the first place, but I guess it's also my lecturer believed in me and like what I could do, and I guess that's how I got into it actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So he observed that I have a good eye for it, and then I figured okay, so if you say that, then I use it for good. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice that it seems like kind of life showed you the direction.
Life unfolds.
Unfolded,
The
yeah.
universe aligns with us. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Right? For your case, yeah. So aside from that, what else are you doing? Is that all you're doing right now? Journalism, videography? Is there any other things that you're doing?
You mean like sports or?
Yeah, sure. Sports. Do you play sports as well?
Yeah,
So you're still playing sports. Okay.
Yeah, last time I used to be netball, right? In school. Yeah, then after that, I came back from America. I started playing squash. So right now I'm playing a fair bit of squash.
Okay.
And then a friend of mine got me hooked onto surfing. So I travel for
Surfing. Okay.
yeah, to surf. Yeah, and then like I bought a bicycle during the circuit breaker, and then I've been cycling a lot, and I've always liked swimming. Yeah, so I guess I'm doing quite a fair bit.
Yeah, because when I asked about the life thing, like life unfold, it seems like you're always exploring new things. Like life keeps giving you new things to explore. And I think based on the discussion we have before this is like you want to live a holistic life, a fulfilling life, right? So yeah, I think that's nice. That life keeps giving you these like kind of gifts.
I guess at the heart of it, like I think I'm a learner. In fact, I'm a nerd, right?
Are you?
I do enjoy like learning and like reading and learning about new things, and to me, that's the way to growth. like growing in life. And I feel like if I ever stop learning new things, life gets mundane and I get not excited about life.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the thing about me, I guess, like that I like to learn new things. Yeah, that's good.
Adventurous. I like that spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about adventurous because, like, to me, I would equate that to like really climbing mountains and all that stuff.
Yeah. No.
A different spirit of adventure, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying new things. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So going back to the topic for today. So as a producer, right? Okay, let's start with this. As a producer, what's the day-to-day job of a producer, basically?
Every day is different.
Oh, wow.
No, I guess like for a producer, at the start of the project, like from ideation to conceptualization of like coming out with features and all that. So that's part of like a producer's job also.
Okay.
Especially like if you're developing stories. So like you're always constantly looking out for new stories to tell.
Okay.
And then of course you have to do your research. Like research is a very big part. And then you do your research and then pre-interviews. Like, yeah, you talk to people and then you kind of assess whether, it would be a good fit to the story or like whether it would be a good fit for another story.
Right.
So then you do your assessment like that. And then after that, like you come up with like, say the story for, so you work with different people in the team.
Okay.
So it could be a director. And then you, so that's like, and then you come up with the creative vision for the particular story, how it's going to unfold.
Right.
And then on shoot, on production wise, like then you work with the crew, like there's a sound man, sometimes you have the lights, people who do lights, and you know, depending how extensive the setup is, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then of course, you work with profiles that you interview. So, and that's part of production. So production is like basically filming like the whole host video and all that. And then you go to post-production where you work with editor and your director, of course, like to fulfill the creative vision from like what you have like in pre-production to post-production. So like to fulfill the end product. Yeah, I know it seems like a really lengthy process, but basically you're in there from the start to the end of like the project. Yeah.
You mentioned all that. I just got one question. What about the idea that created that project? Is that down to the producer or is that somebody else providing the idea?
So you work in a team. So like, say for example, like in the past, right? Like maybe for television, and then you have your writers in your team as well.
Yeah.
And then of course, like there are different formats in which like maybe a client say that, oh, you know, I want to do a video on this.
Right.
Why don't you pitch me several ideas of like how the video is gonna be? Right? So then you guys brainstorm. So then there's a brainstorming session, can take up to like hours. Yeah. And then to pitch the right idea. Or like sometimes you just happen to have a great idea, right? And then you do your research and then you write a proposal and then you pitch the idea. So it could work in many different ways.
I see. So that's how it works. Okay. Because for me, it's like... got me thinking like, what's my role in this as a doing this podcast?
Well,
right?
your role is to look for people on LinkedIn and connect with them.
I know, right?
Yeah, and that's your role as well, right? You are constantly looking out for like new contacts or profiles that you could reconnect or connect with.
Yeah.
And that would be a good fit for your podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what you do, right?
Is it similar to what you do as well?
Similar, like in the sense that like if we have a story, for example, of a certain theme, and then we look for profiles that could fit into the theme. Yeah, so I guess it's similar.
Okay, cool. So I'm kind of like a producer, guys.
He is a podcast producer. Yeah.
Cool. I never thought I'd be one, but yeah, cool. Okay, so yeah, what are the type of work that you've done so far, if you don't mind sharing, like in terms of producing?
So like mainly factual content. So like from documentaries where I first started out as an assistant producer, and then I assist to like produce like international documentaries.
Okay.
And then after graduation, I went back into like the line of work and I worked for a local production house.
Okay.
But I also mainly do like factual content. Yeah, so that's for, and some local stuff as well.
Okay.
So that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then I move on to the digital storytelling space where we tell stories both like local and internationally. Yeah, but also still about like this time it's about like people doing good across Asia because we have 7 different markets.
Okay.
And then we kind of source stories from the different countries in the region.
Okay.
And then we tell their stories. Yeah.
Am I allowed to mention the name of your company?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Our Better World, right?
Yes,
Our
yes.
Better World.
Yeah.
So have a look at the website, guys. ourbetterworld.org, was it?
Yes.
.org, right? Yeah. Is that a non-profit?
Yeah, it's a non-profit
non-profit.
organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, powered by Singapore International Foundation.
Because when I took a look at after viewing her video on LinkedIn and then after that heading onto the website, I was really inspired by the kind of work that you guys are doing. I think the message that you guys are trying to give through your videos and through the articles and the stories that you shared, it was really powerful. And that's why I really resonated with it, and I really had to take a chance on trying to reconnect with you, because this was something that was powerful, and it's not something that I come across often. Like the reason why I'm doing all this, the Inspire You to the Deep Culture podcast, is that I feel like that's where a lot of it is missing here in Singapore. Yeah, like the inspiring things, finding out people's stories, because I think everybody has a story to share, basically, has a journey, has a unique experience, and it's all about giving them a platform to share that. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah.
Doing the producer?
I guess like you know, like why I even dabbled into documentary storytelling. Like there was this module in poly, and my lecturer for that particular module, she made us like write, or like not write down, like, but like on a typewriter, which is super old school, but to write down like what kind of documentary storyteller you want to be. So that was when I was like 17 or 18, many years back, right? And then I guess like one of the things that I wrote down was like to kind of like to give a voice to the voiceless, in the sense that like to tell stories that are that people would not have heard of. So to give them a platform to share. So that was what I've written when I was like really young back then, and at the same time like I didn't even would know that I would be doing what I am today. So I guess like the power of like just visualization, or like just writing down something, like there's power in it. So that's one thing that I would I would like to do, or like continue doing. To tell stories of people and giving them the platform to share their stories.
High five.
Yeah.
Like I said, it sounds really like I found my twin on the digital media space, and really keep on doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
So what are some of the experiences that great experiences that you've had? How long have you been doing this in the firstly?
Okay, so I started like at the end of like my poly, like when I was 19. The 6-month internship was the start of it, because right after that I just continued working on for the same company for I continued on working on for the same company for like 2 years. So that, but after that I decided to go back to school, and so I graduated from uni, and then after that I continued working on the in the industry, and then total like 6 years now, I think. I would think. It's quite and I think like some of the experiences would be, one thing is I really like about my job is that it brings me to places. So traveling is a part of the job, and I actually enjoy it a lot. Like it was, in a way, it combined my passion for traveling and like my job at the same time. So I was really happy to do that. And because like going to places, not just like say physically, but also like say even in Singapore, you go to places where you would never have thought like you would go to. Like I went to Semakau Island, which is an island of Singapore, but I would not have gone there myself if like it wasn't for a shoot that I was doing. So like it literally brings you to places that you just ordinarily wouldn't go. At the same time, I encountered like people from all walks of life, and that's really interesting because I love to know people and like get to really uncover their stories. So I guess like that's also like a privilege that I have in this job. And that is some of the memorable experiences would definitely be meeting them, knowing their stories, and also seeing how honestly it will impact you in certain ways or another. I think personally everybody would react to certain stories differently. Of course, like on the job is always like to tell the stories for the story, right? For like the project that we are doing. But at the same time, like in the midst of the interview, while you're interviewing them, learning about their life, you would feel like, you could relate to it, you know, like in your personal life. And I think like that's one of like the things I enjoy also about work.
How often do you do these projects? Is it like every week there's one or every month?
Oh,
or-
if every week there's one, I'll be super, super yeah, so burn out. Yeah, so for television, when I was back there doing television work, it's one project could last for months. So like I could spend months doing it, like maybe even 6 months. I think the longest was 6 months doing one particular project.
Okay.
And yeah, it's very long, but at the same time, it feels like you're really in it, like to see. I mean, that's what producers do, right? From the start to the end, you don't give up like when things get hard.
Yeah.
So that's the good and bad of the job as well. Yeah. But you know, like interestingly, right? Like just to go like off tangent for a bit, was that like what you see on TV, right?
Yeah.
It's really just 10% of like the research and work done.
10%.
Yeah, that's what a mentor told me at the start. Like when I went back after school to work, and
Yeah.
like she's been in the industry for many years, right? So she said like all the research and like work that you do is only 10% of what the audience sees on television. Yeah, but at the same time, like the 90% of it is what you learn. So that's a really good like a good payoff, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and true enough, like when I do the work, right, do the groundwork and all that, it really feels like that. Yeah. So people can watch like a documentary and say, oh, it's so inspiring. And like, but that's only 10% of what really like compounds of the entire story. Yeah. So so that's also another privilege that I do enjoy like at my job.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard of the concept of what we see is usually just 10% of the iceberg.
Yeah.
So I guess this is something similar to that, right? Where 90% is unseen, but that's also where the value of what you do comes
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I do agree. And also at the same time, that's the pro and cons of a producer, like being at the start to the end of a project. Yeah, because I mean like other people like might come in and out of the project at any point in time, right? Although like their skill set is very valuable to the project, but at the same time, like the dirt that they have to go through is not even like 90% of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So I have a question for you, Lilian. You said like, you are there from the start all the way to the end as a producer, right? Were there times when you just didn't know what to do with the story? Because that's what I have to face sometimes doing this podcast, right? Like some of the guests, edits of course have to go into the podcast. And sometimes I feel like I don't know where I should edit, where I should leave in. So for your part as a producer, how do you handle that kind of thing?
Like which part to add in and which part to leave out.
The decisions that you have to
Yeah,
make.
so I guess thankfully, like say in producing video content, right, we have a team to work with, and usually like we work very closely with the director or the filmmaker in doing that. And like if there's like say like structurally, like in terms of the narrative, we could still move around, but the worst case scenario is we just gotta reshoot. So basically it could be like just finding a better profile or like a new profile to fit into the story. Yeah, we have to do that if like it comes to that. Yeah, so we still like, I guess you could still salvage the situation. Of course, if there's resources enough to do that as well. Yeah, budget wise. Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, I'm thinking, how do I apply that here? Because I can't afford to reshoot with someone, right?
So then I guess for yours, it could be just like maybe just tightening all the story so that it fit into the narrative. So it means that it could be like half an hour, but it fits into it makes sense, the entire narrative. And then I guess if you give value to like a story, then the length of it doesn't really matter as much. Maybe that's something you could like work around also. Creatively, just think of many ways to do that. I'm
learning so much today. I mean, not just in terms of inspiration, but more like also in terms of
technical. That's because you're older.
Why you gotta keep reminding me, Lilian?
Because it's your birthday today, and that's the best opportunity to say that.
I know, right? Okay. I had another question in mind. Throughout the whole process, you said some goes as long as 6 months, right, as a project. Were there times where you burnt out?
Oh yeah. In fact, I think I think like honestly, if anybody working in the media industry, they would have told you that they would want to quit a lot of times.
Okay.
And when I was younger, I was a bit more like, I guess idealistic, and I would think like, oh, oh, never happened to me.
Mm.
But I guess in the course of like all things, it happened, and like many times I really just want to drop out. Yeah, because there are times where, like, say when I left in the first place to go back to school,
Right.
it wasn't burnt out, but then at the same time it was more of like I felt inadequate in my role because I was young. I was very young, like
Right.
right out of poly, right? And then you're doing that. And although like nobody, like my colleagues were really, really nice, and nobody ever like undermined me, but then I guess it's something that I struggled with, because in the sense of like whether I have the capacity to do that, because you have to understand,
Yep.
in the media industry, like the crew and all that, they're all like very experienced people.
Okay.
And in this industry, at least in Singapore, right, like experience counts for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right? The number of years, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that is one thing that you have to really stand your ground. But then the thing is, if you know what you do, I don't think like people can undermine you for that. Yeah, so it's not just number of years. I think it's more of like the quality of your work to show.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it like? Okay, when you entered, how old were you?
19.
Wow. Okay. And how was that at the age of 19? Because, the reason why I'm asking this is also because I kind of can relate to that in a sense when I entered the consultancy industry at the age of, I think was about, I got accredited at the age of 20, but I really started going into it at about 22 or so, about there. And like you said, that industry also has a lot of expectations based on your experience and age. So I felt the pressure. Like I was thinking, how can I even be successful at the age of 22 in this industry? And then eventually, I kind of pulled out at the age of 26 or so. But you're still in it, despite all the highs and lows. So what pulled you through?
What pulls me through? I guess a part of it is that I really like what I do. Like I believe in like what I do, right?
Okay.
And sometimes I think it's just when I hear of like, so for example, like we tell stories of people,
Right.
and how after that, like whether it's on television or like whether online, and how it has impacted their life, then I do feel like what I do is meaningful. Yeah. So sometimes in the process of it, like you'll be like, oh, why am I doing all this? You know, because you deal with a lot of things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like just because it makes a slight change in someone else's life, like a difference, it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
I know it's very cliche, but at the same time, it really do.
Yeah, no, I get you totally. It's the same like with the trainings and consultancy work. It's just, I don't know, how did you deal, were there any people, any of the older people, like, was it tough getting clients in the first place, maybe?
Clients, as in, like, commission work?
I don't know. Because like for me at least, it's like,
Right.
the clients will hire you and then based on what you can offer, right? And then if they're looking, during the interview, they're looking at somebody who's very young, maybe they're not as confident with the kind of work I can do. Is that the same process for you?
It's a bit different because like back then, like it was, say for example, the company would get the projects and then assign producers to it. Yeah, so in the sense that like the reputation of the company is the one there, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess at the same time, it's a huge learning opportunity, to do that. And of course, like when a workload comes in, you would have to know, okay, like basically you just hustle through it, right? Like there's no like impossible. So you just hustle through everything that gets thrown in your way. And I guess that's also like grit and resilience that you kind of like grow into. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I mean, anybody could just like throw in a towel and say that, you know what, I had enough of this. Because honestly, anybody would tell you that the media industry is not like a very kind place to be at. Although it could be better, right? I mean, and that's something that like people should know. Like just going there is not all glam and bliss. Honestly, it's not.
It has that kind of image, but it's not really.
Yeah, I think like that's what I admired also a lot about like my colleagues and all that is because they really hustle through a lot of things. And I guess in my first workplace where I met a bunch of people who eventually we all went different paths, but then they've inspired me in huge ways in their life and also like just their grit and resilience. Yeah. In fact, it's one of them. It's one of them that we've grown close to. Like now she's not in Singapore anymore, but she also encouraged me to be on this podcast Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, because like
Okay.
I just happened to be like I'm talking to her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then I told her about it. Like you reconnected and you asked me, and then I was just thinking about it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then she encouraged me to be on it.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I guess like she inspired me also like to continue in this line of work.
What was it that she told you to that made you come on this podcast?
I don't remember exactly what she said for sure, but like it's just I guess it empowers me to make a decision because honestly I'm not somebody who would like to be in the media.
Right.
I mean, in the limelight, like I would rather be behind the camera
Yeah, I
than
know.
to be in front of the
Isn't it?
camera. That's always like a thing. Yeah.
Right.
So for me, like to be in front of the camera, to choose to be in front of the camera, it's quite a leap. Yeah.
All the more I should say thank you for deciding to
No,
come
thank
on.
you for the opportunity. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I believe in your podcast and what you do.
All right. Thank you. So, our world, our better world, right? How did you get into that line? That would be interesting for me.
So before that, I told you I was in a broadcast, and I guess I reached a point where I wanted to quit.
Right.
No, as in like I was just like, yeah, I was thinking of other options in life, right?
Okay.
And I didn't wanted to. I thought like maybe I should explore something new.
Okay.
And funnily enough, like was that my friend, like one of my friend, she told me about our better world,
Okay.
and then but I kind of know like what they do, but then I didn't think that like I would be working for them as well.
Right.
And then another mentor from the industry also mentioned that like just in separate conversation.
Okay.
Say, oh, I think like you'll be a good fit there. And again, I wasn't like I heard it, but then I wasn't like I just didn't research enough, right? Like or anything. But then I went to this like storytelling workshop by Disney, and then I met
By Disney?
Disney had this storytelling workshop in Singapore. I think,
Okay.
yeah, like a boot camp. Yeah, and then so then I met one of them was giving a talk about like the documentary he made, and at the same time like I was like, oh, that's really interesting because I watched the documentary and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. Like it would be a very good person to learn from.
Right.
And it turns out he's in our battle world. And then it was like all the dots connected again. Yeah.
Life unfolded for you.
Yeah, and then so I actually took. So after I left my previous job, I was planning to go to surf for like 2 weeks in Bali. Yeah, so I've already planned it. But then apparently, like since I got a job, I cut short my surfing trip to a week, and then I came back here and I started my new job. Yeah, and it was definitely a very steep learning curve in like in the first 3 months, 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, but once I go and shoot and all that, it feels more familiar. And then right now I'm happy to say that I'm learning on the job.
Yeah.
Like a lot more on the job as well. Yeah, so that's a plus for me.
Yeah, definitely. You said steep learning curve. How is that? What makes a steep learning curve? Because the way I understand it as a producer, you more or less do the same things.
But I guess it's different because it's for different platform. For example, like before that, we work with a lot of commissioner from broadcast networks. So you kind of expect, you kind of know like what is it that they want, how the process is, the timeline and all that. But like for digital media where it goes online, and then there's a lot more like implications, I feel, like online and all that. So you kind of learn it on the job as well. And of course, like they have like digital like say data team, and they analyze data and all that. And it's also part of our job as producers to understand what it means, right? Because like when a story goes online and then like the impact it has after that, right, it's very important for us to understand that, so that the next story we tell, we could harness like what we've learned to tell a better story. Yeah, so that is something that I'm still learning on the job. Yeah, so that would be so for me it was quite steep because it wasn't numbers wasn't like quite a thing that I have to struggle with back then. Yeah, but now I have to understand a little bit more, just understand a bit more.
Oh yeah, you don't have to do numbers. What numbers, by the way?
Numbers, for example, like say the number of views you have, or like the
okay.
different platforms, and like because a lot of our stories have like we call to action, like a call to action,
Yeah.
like whether say these stories it have this number of view, but whether it has achieved the impact that we want it to achieve. Yeah, so all those like would have to make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. The call to action is important, I think, especially in
Yeah.
the social media spaces.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing it. So join our Facebook group, guys. This is a call to action. Join our Facebook group.
See, there you insert an ad there.
Yeah. Subscribe, follow us. Yeah, do all that. What else is there? I also got this question
Yeah.
for you. As a producer and you make videos, do you ever see other producers' videos and start comparing your videos?
Oh, I watch a lot of videos, like literally. Yeah, like I like to watch like stories, but I wouldn't compare.
Okay.
Like, cause I feel like it's like apples and oranges. Yeah, cause I mean like in the organization we do a very particular type of like storytelling.
Okay.
Like there's a brand style and everything. So I wouldn't compare, but like I would then think, oh, this is a very good story. Like the person tells it like very creatively. Then I'll be like, oh, that's a good like thing to learn, right? Like, oh, we could use it. We could tell stories like that.
Yeah.
And then, cause part of it is like film critic. You watch a movie, you kind of like know what you like about a movie, what you don't like about the movie. Yeah. So like. I guess with that kind of lens, right, I watch shows or like movies like that as well.
Okay.
So I can be quite a pain to watch movie
Right.
if you don't like film critic, because a lot of people consume it just for entertainment,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, but with that kind of lens, you kind of know it. So I guess I approach like watching videos like that. Yeah, so then I'll just pick up the good and the bad, in it, and then if it's like good thing, then I might want to continue watching your channel or something like that.
Right.
But if it's not, then I probably just watch it once or twice and never watch it again.
I better do a good job then. Okay. Oh no, the question slipped my mind. Comparing. Oh yes, this is a question. When you do the what do you call it? The edits or the producing, right? Is there a template to it that you follow? For example, like now you're in our better world, and then is there a certain kind of template in the way that you produce a story, or is it solely down to your creativity and how you want to produce it?
More of like to the filmmaker's creativity, how they so producing is like getting basically, like I would put it into layman's term, is like getting the job done, right? And then in terms of like creative vision, is the filmmaker's job scope role, and the editor to make it into the most creative way that they would like it to be. So then they would definitely try to test boundaries in terms of edit and all that. And then but then to keep it to, say for example, if there's a time limit to it, they just gotta keep it within a time limit and all that. So I think like for every creative person, like there's always that room to explore your creativity, but then at the same time, all of us, we've learned to also accept the boundaries set by, say, your client or like your commissioner or anything, right? To make the story fit into the particular platform that you tell the story at.
Yeah. So there are certain boundaries that you have to keep within, in a sense.
Well, it depends on what's agreed before, like say for example, like say most of videos could be 5 minutes, but then at the same time you've already decided from onset like you're gonna do like a 10-minute video.
Okay.
So then it's a different thing already, because it's already agreed that it's 10 minutes.
So is there would you prefer to have like the privilege of creating videos without like those boundaries? Because I mean, for me, one of the things I love about doing this podcast is that I have that creative power to do a certain style that I like to do it. Is that the same for you in that industry?
I think like for example, like boundaries wise, right? It's what kind of boundaries? For example, like if it's like anything that's offensive, right? That could offend, or like I mean, honestly, we are quite a tolerant community, so we wouldn't like go off boundaries like that, off topics like that. And at the same time, is what you want to achieve with your story. So like if your story is to target a certain age group or like a certain market, you want it to make sense to them, right? So far, I don't think there's quite a very strict boundaries. But then it's, I guess in Singapore especially, like you know that there's a lot of like OB markers, like out of bound markers, right? In terms of like media. So we have to learn how to live within it, because at the same time limitations also allows you to test your creativity. I mean, you've seen that people who could creatively tell stories and yet just dabble on certain like markers that you think is off topic, but yet at the same time they portray it and they manage to pass through like their censorship board, right? Then you'll be like, oh yeah, that's a creative way to tell it. Yeah, so I guess if you look at it in that kind of lens, right, you could learn to explore your creativity.
Right.
Yeah, in telling stories. Back then in school, I think a lot of us are like, why can't we tell this story? Why can't we do this and all that? And but then now that like you're out there, like you're hustling for your work, right? You realize that if you keep with that mindset, it's not gonna do you any good. So you kind of learn and grow with it, and then see what you could do in the future. I think that's wiser. Yeah.
I have a couple of friends also who are in the creative space who feel like sometimes these OB markers, to put it nicely, kind of suppress creativity here in Singapore.
I honestly like that's totally true, right? I mean, just look at like a lot of creatives that chose to venture overseas. I think that's a very telltale sign. I think it's opening up for sure, like in Singapore. But then at the same time, it's not at that speed rate that we would like to be that it could grow at. So there's a consideration, because arts and culture, although it's better accepted now, it wasn't in the past, and there's no denying of that also.
That's true. Okay, so at the moment you're quite contented with the doing what you can within the OB markers in that sense.
Right now, I feel like there's not much of like in the sense that the work that I do, right? Because we tell stories across Asia, so within the boundaries, like it's not so much of like there's not so much of like
OB markers.
Okay, there will definitely be boundaries. There's definitely boundaries, but at the same time, can I still tell a story without like without overstepping any boundaries? I could. So then it's okay. But of course, like it depends on like what kind of stories you want to tell. Like right now, like the struggle, I think like it depends on the different projects that you have in place, right? And if there's any markers that you're struggling with, then it's your job as a creative person to find also like other creative ways to tell. And I guess that's a challenge you could set for yourself. Because right now, like say there are a lot of different formats, right? A lot of different mediums to tell. So like it could be a very sensitive topic, but if you could illustrate it through animation and not infringe on any boundaries or like any offensive like any lines basically, right? You could still tell the story. I don't see there's any offense in that also.
I agree. I mean, the thing about it is that those some of those friends that I have who say creativity is suppressed here in Singapore, I feel like they focus too much on it, and I think like you mentioned, it's about finding that creative solution about how you can express your creativity despite those I like the word OB markers. It's a new term.
You should read a book. There's a book on it.
Okay. OB markers, is it?
Literally OB markers. Well, of course, like to each their own. So like there are people who can find it like really oppressive, and then they move to somewhere else, but then it's still their like liberty to do that, right? There's nothing wrong in that, right? And there's nothing wrong in anything, as long as I feel like as long as you can be true to yourself. For me, it's just a change in perspective. For example, like if I face in a difficult situation, I'll try to find a change in perspective, because I cannot change the things around me, but I can change what I think, right? But however, if it doesn't sit right with my values, like for example, if there are certain things that I feel like, oh no, it's just not right, then to me that's the line where I can find other alternative, and because that's what I really believe in, right? So I guess change in perspective always helps.
Definitely. And that's a very interesting point of view.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think the big one. So through your experience, I think since 19, right? Till now, what's Lilian's way of doing storytelling?
I have no particular way of storytelling.
Really?
But
Okay.
I don't think there's one way because I like to see it as like constantly evolving. Yeah. So it really depends on okay, so basically like in terms of style and format, I don't think there's one particular way. But
Okay.
I think the value in telling truth, right? And also like in presenting right, meaning for example, like if I tell a story of a profile,
Yeah.
I want to give justice to their story. I
Right.
don't want I don't want any sort of manipulation to their story. I want them to have the power to tell their own narrative. Yeah, and I feel like that's why I do what I do, right?
Yeah.
So in any way that like if I were to tell a story that I don't sit right with it, like say for example, like after constant edits, many edits and all that, I don't even believe in the story anymore, then it's not something that I'll be proud of to say that, oh, it's my work. Yeah, so I guess like for what I post on LinkedIn, I like things that I really enjoy doing. In the whole process of like learning or like the whole process of producing it, I really just enjoy the whole process, and I know that it gives justice to the story, and to me that's very important, and that's what I value, I guess, in terms of storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah, over the years you kind of grow and learn into
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So how do you do justice to let's say somebody's story? To you, what comes into your mind as a producer when you hear somebody's story?
So for example, like as producers, we do a lot of pre-interviews. So like the pre-interview is more of like really getting to know the person that you're gonna interview, and for me that's very important.
Is it something like the one I had a pre-call with you?
Yeah, correct. So
So
like
it's
the
the same thing?
pre-interview, right? So usually we spend time like doing that pre-interview to just not only understand their story, like what they want to tell, but also like understand who they really are. Because one thing that I've realized is that like when a person is comfortable with you, they would share more and more, like more naturally they would just share more.
Okay.
And sometimes like for the stories that we tell, it could be something that was quite painful for them in the past.
Yeah.
And with that, like they have to be comfortable with you to tell it, and to tell it right, meaning that like when you tell it, it could represent what they really felt, or like what they truly think at that point in time, and it wouldn't be manipulated into like a message that you're trying to distort. I feel like that kind of storytelling is not something I want to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've seen like documentaries that are very, I don't know, like in the end it's like, really a person would say that because if they know what the story is going to turn out to be like, would they still reveal their truth to you?
Yeah.
So that is something that I know that's not what I want to do.
Yeah. So media manipulation, is that the term?
Manipulating of stories, I think. Yeah.
So like I've seen a lot of cases where, I mean, I've also heard this saying that the media controls the narrative.
I think the victor controls the narrative.
The victor controls the narrative.
Yeah.
Okay.
History teach you that.
You mind elaborating a bit on that?
Say for example, right? Like say for example, we hear we always hear the winning side of the story, right? And then the thing is that like why? Because the loser does not have the power or like the platform or like the connections to tell their story. So then the victor is always like the winning one, or like the stronger one, the more powerful one, has the resources to tell the story, right? To tell how any event turns out to be like, how the situation is like, and all that. But do you hear from like the one that do not have the resources to tell? Not really, right? Yeah. So I feel like the media is in the sense that yes, we report the news, we report the stories, but now with like social media, anybody can just like report their own news, right? Citizen journalism is a thing now. Yeah. So actually,
Citizen journalism, that's a term.
Yeah, citizen journalism is like when individual of the public, they tell the story.
Okay.
Yeah. But you see, you can only do that if you have a phone, a smartphone. If you don't have the resources for that, how are you going to tell a story, right? You can tell it to your neighbor, but your neighbor is not interested in it, then how? Yeah. So then I feel like the victor, or like the powerful ones, or like the people with resources are the one controlling the narrative.
Okay.
Yeah, which is something like, that's why like the story that like I tell now, like with really look into like social impact. I think that's one thing that I personally just like am keen on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Personal impact.
No, social impact.
Social impact.
Yeah. Say for example, it could be like a person's life, and then but then they don't tell their stories for many years, but they're doing years of good. You know. Yeah. And then, but they're also struggling, right? Because like say maybe donations don't come in, or like they need help, but then they don't know how to get it. But like by telling their story and giving them a platform where they could share it to other people who would actually like to help, then it would be very helpful for them. Yeah. So I I believe in like that as well. Sharing resources.
That is beautiful. I really love that, Lilian. Like, I think that kind of work, if you ask me, it's the most fulfilling kind of job.
That's to each their own, right?
Yeah, to each their own,
'Cause,
yeah.
I
For
mean,
me personally, at least, I agree.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I feel like that's something that in life, I guess, when you feel like you're in the right place at the right time and you believe in what you do, right? Like that kind of fulfillment, that sense of fulfillment is way far greater than any riches in the world.
Yeah.
As cliche as it is, but I do believe in it. Yeah.
Because I think, like, so many of us, all human beings, we crave a sense of belonging, right? And a lot of us don't get that sense of belonging because we're not receiving our so-called acknowledgements from our environment, like people hearing us or listening to our stories or listening to our problems. So I think for me, like what I feel I'm doing with this podcast, what I feel like you're doing with your videos, is like you being there, giving them a voice or letting them air out their concerns or their stories, right? It's kind of like acknowledging their presence, which gives them a sense of belonging. That's the way I see my work that I'm doing here. It's like helping in a way give back, also to give you a sense of belonging, to feel like, you know, there's an appreciation for you being here, for you doing this. And that's why, like, even you coming on the show, it's a big sense of appreciation for me. Like, now people, whoever are listening, they get to know the side of a producer, they get to know the side of our better world, what they are doing, you know. And I love that. I really do. And I feel like this is a birthday present itself for me.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I think that's a very interesting perspective as well. Yeah, to have. Yeah. And yeah, maybe this is your birthday gift for the 12 years.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about all the questions I have, actually. Yeah. Any awards so far as a producer?
Yeah, but you
Humble
see,
bragging.
no humble bragging. But then, yeah, of course, like there's one that won a local show, like one of the projects I've worked on that won like a local award.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess in this line of work, I mean, like, I think everybody value different things.
Right.
Yeah, value things differently, and you have different priorities and all that. And also, like, when you play sports, right, you kind of know how important like winning something is, right? Yeah. But at the same time, like, after like you kind of like, but for me, the process is what is more important, because I feel like in the process you glean so much more than what you actually just achieved.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, achieve are like acknowledgements, right, which are great, but then I realized that I'm not chasing that anymore. What I really want is to enjoy the process.
Okay.
And honestly, the process is hard to enjoy. Yeah.
So how are you getting the enjoyment then?
Just, I guess, like with every day you wake up, you remind yourself why you do what you do. And to me, like, it's the daily grind that really changes a lot of things. Yeah. And sometimes, like, it's just like, say for example, in one day, all I learn is to change my perspective in a certain situation. To me, I think that's a learning point, because it will be a story I could tell in the future.
Yeah.
When I meet somebody for like lunch or dinner, right, I'm not gonna say, oh, this is the award I've won, or like the trophies I've won, right? Because like, who does that?
Right.
But then you kind of tell them stories of, oh, you know, like at work, and then this happened, or like, oh, in my life, you know, this happened. And then those are stories that we remember.
Yeah.
And I think it gives more meaning to life. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. It's a bigger impact. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
And that's why we tell stories.
And I saw that glimmer in your eye when you were sharing them. Like, ding.
Oh. Sparkle in her eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that about wraps it up. I don't have any other questions.
So
I
this
don't
is
think.
how you cut.
Do you have anything that you want to share?
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
So if I say that 10 times, you are 10 years older.
I'll save it for the next year, for the next 10 years.
10 times older. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you so much again, Lilian, for coming on. Really, I appreciate it. It's a great birthday gift. At least I think it is for me. Yeah, to be able to discuss this, because not only has it helped me in terms of understanding the technical aspects a bit more in the media industry, but really, like, it's finding somebody who has that kind of the same vision or same what's the word, purpose in what we do. Yeah, really feels like I found my digital media twin.
Yay, high five.
So I support you. hopefully in all that you do. I hope you guys also support her as well in her work. Check out ourbetterworld.org. Yeah, for more of their work. I think it's going to be really amazing to support them in what they're doing. If you like our content, I'm pretty sure you like their content as well. And with that, I think that about wraps it up.
All right.
So thank you, Lilian.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Don't forget to join our Facebook group over at inspireyoutoo Deep Culture. And then also don't forget to subscribe if you're watching this, because why won't you, right?
It helps him.
Definitely. So thanks, guys, and I will see you guys next time on another episode of the Deep Culture Podcast. Thanks, Lilian.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And you cut.